I have submitted this account to the Colonial Compact Medical Board at their request. I am told it will be filed under Standard After Action Protocol 7, Contested Territory Incident Review. I am told it will be reviewed by a committee. I am told the committee will then determine whether my actions during the 42nd week of Vareth's Crossing's third occupation audit were within the scope of authorized medical practice. I am not worried about the committee. She came through the supply hatch at 03:02 on a Tuesday. I know the time because I was awake. 14 years on a frontier hospital moon means you stop sleeping the way other people sleep. You close your eyes, and you listen, and some part of you stays behind, counting the sounds. The compressor on the second refrigeration unit runs at a particular pitch when the coolant is low. The East Corridor door seal has a whistle in it when the wind comes off the ridge. You know your station the way you know your own hands, and when something changes, you know before you know. The hatch is a standard supply access point, 40 centimeters square, built into the exterior wall of Bay 3. It is designed for specimen transfer, specimen jars, sample containers, compact enough that nothing large should come through it. She came through it wrapped in a length of surgical gauze, folded small, the way someone folds a thing they love very much and are terrified to put down. I do not know who wrapped her. I do not know how they knew about the hatch. I do not know how they got onto station grounds past the Sorrel perimeter, or why they chose me, or whether they chose me at all, or whether they simply found a gap in the wire and aimed for the light. The gauze had a resettlement coordinate pressed into it in smeared ink. I recognized the format. Sorev Corridor Relocation Network. The ink was half gone, but I copied what remained into my log before I set the gauze aside. She was small, pale lavender skin, silver eyes, very still, the way eyes get when a creature has learned not to let them move too much. White hair, fine as spider silk, matted against one side of her head. She was wearing what had been a child's robe at some point, sun-bleached down to the color of old bone. In her right hand, she held a surgical clamp, a Halstead mosquito, the standard issue kind, the kind we keep in a rack on the Bay 3 instrument tray. I do not know where she had gotten it. I did not ask. I got a blanket. I sat down on the floor of Bay 3, with my back against the wall, so that I was at her level, and I put the blanket between us, and I waited. After 11 minutes, she climbed onto my lap, surgical clamp still in her fist, and went to sleep. I filed the Biological Welfare Discovery at 0341 under Colonial Compact Medical Code Section 7, Subclause 3. I filed the treatment order at 0354. Active patient, Sorev child, unregistered, presenting with moderate systemic dehydration and stress-related immune suppression, placed on intravenous fluid protocol, minimum 72 hours continuous monitoring. I filed both documents to the compact relay at 0401 and received automated confirmation at 0403. At 0600, the Sorrel Enforcement Authority arrived. 3 agents. They had a writ. A biological transit audit order authorizing search and seizure of unregistered non-Terran biological material on colonial territory pending processing. The lead agent was a tall man, thin-shouldered, with the careful eyes of someone who has been doing this work long enough to know where people hide things. I met them at the front entrance. I was still in my scrubs. I had not slept. I told them I had a patient in Bay 3. I told them the patient was under active medical custody per Colonial Compact Medical Code Article 9, which prohibits the transfer, search in presence, or physical removal of any patient in verified treatment until the treating physician certifies completion. I told them I had not certified completion. I told them that until I did, the Colonial Compact's medical jurisdiction superseded their transit writ, and that any attempt to enter Bay 3 while my patient was in active treatment would constitute a violation of the medical sovereignty provisions of the Vareth's Crossing Station Charter, Subclause 14, which carries a 10,000 credit institutional penalty per incident. The lead agent looked at me for a long time. I looked back. He asked how long the treatment would take. I said 72 hours minimum. More if complications developed. You couldn't rush immune recovery in a child that size. It would be irresponsible. It would be bad medicine. He asked if he could at least confirm the patient's identity. I said I would be happy to provide a patient summary when treatment was complete, consistent with standard medical disclosure protocols. In the meantime, Any interaction with an active patient by non-medical personnel, without the patient's consent and a supervising physician present, would constitute a separate violation under Colonial Health Privacy Code Section 19. I was happy to cite the paragraph number, if that would help. He did not want the paragraph number. They set up in the corridor outside Bay 3, all three of them. They had camp chairs, collapsible ones, the kind designed for long operations. The lead agent had a thermos. I pulled a chair out of the storage room across the hall and sat down across from them and read patient charts. I did not offer them coffee. I did not offer them anything. I sat there and I read charts, and every few hours I went into Bay 3 and adjusted the IV line and sat on the floor for a while and came back out. On the second day, she started eating. I brought broth from the ward kitchen, the same broth we give post-operative patients, thin and warm and easy. She took the cup in both hands, clamp still tucked in her elbow, and she drank it with great concentration, like a creature remembering how things work. I did not name her. It did not seem like my place. On the second day, the lead agent asked me, through the corridor, why I was doing this. I told him I was a physician. My patient was ill. I was doing my job. He said that was not what he meant. I told him I was not sure what else to tell him. He sat with that for a while. Then he picked up his thermos and poured himself another cup of whatever was in it, and he looked at the ceiling, and he did not ask anything else. The writ expired at hour 68. The agents broke down their camp chairs at hour 69 and walked out the front entrance without speaking. The lead agent paused at the door and looked back at me. Then he walked out. I did not watch them leave. I had charts to finish. The SORAV resettlement coordinator arrived at hour 71. She had a woman with her. The woman's lavender was darker than the child's, richer, the color of something that had weathered a long time and held. She had the same white hair, the same silver eyes, older and harder, and full of something I don't have a word for that isn't inadequate. I opened the door to Bay 3. The child looked up from the instrument tray, where she had been systematically organizing my surgical tools by size. She went very still the way she went still, the way those silver eyes stopped moving. Then she was gone, past me, into the corridor, into the woman's arms, and the sound that came out of both of them was not something I will try to describe. Some sounds are not for describing. They belong to the people who make them. I went back into Bay 3 and began restoring the surgical tools to their proper positions on the tray. After a few minutes, the child came back in. She came to where I was standing. She held up the surgical clamp, the Halstead mosquito, the one she'd arrived with, and she held it there until I put out my hand. She pressed it into my palm. She looked at me for a moment, and whatever she said, I did not know the words for. I have never learned SORAV. 14 years on a transit moon, and I never got around to it. I have thought about that in the time since. I said, "You're discharged. It means you're better. It means you can go." I don't know if she understood. She turned and walked back out to the corridor. I put the clamp in my coat pocket. I finished restoring the tray. I went to my desk and opened the discharge file, and I filled out the paperwork with the same care I use for any patient. Date and time of admission, presenting condition, treatment administered, outcome, attending physician's signature. Outcome, full recovery. Patient discharged to family in good health. I filed it to the compact relay. I received automated confirmation. Then I put my coat on. The clamp was still in the pocket. I checked, and I walked out the back entrance and stood in the cold air coming off the ridge for a while, until the compressor on the second refrigeration unit started cycling up the way it does when it needs attention, and then I went back inside, because that is a sound that means something needs to be done, and there is no one else here to do it. People ask what I did for her. I tell them I just did my job. That is the only answer I have, and it is the true one, and I find that it is enough.